Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Missing Manual Show. I'm Julia.
And I'm JCK. It's lovely to see you again.
Thanks for joining in. Today, we're going to kind of continue the conversation around what an FDE is and how this type of role could be really helpful within HR organizations. And you don't need an engineer on your team to do this. Maybe some of the challenges that happen in HR and TA teams and the type of skills that you or your colleagues could gain to become this type of role. So Jenny, why don't you talk about what an FDE is and how in gaining some of those skills?
So it's interesting. I just had an application process for an FTE role, and it's a warm referral. And one of the things that was in the job description was 8 to 12 years of software experience. And so, for context, the FDE role, forward deployed engineer, is somebody that really gets to know what the problem is for a specific user or user group or company, understands all of the different one size fits one nature of that problem, and then reverse engineers an agentic build to be able to typically solve for that problem and then deploys it into their world. Very much like a build and shift aspect. And the thing to understand about it is at its core, what an FTE does is they are managing through the double diamond model of design process. So the double diamond model of design is two triangles or two diamonds that are next to each other. The left diamond is our problem engineering diamond, where we seek to understand what the problem is, all the different layers, how it fits, essentially really understanding that 360-degree problem, right? Then once we fully understand that and we get confirmation from our user groups and our personas that we've got that part right, then we move into the solution engineering side, which is designing the right thing. So again, triangle one, they're separate. Triangle one is defining the right thing and then building that thing right. So build the right thing, build that right.
And before you go on from there, I think that just that alone is really critical for us to talk about because a lot of us have design bias inherently. So I can think of coming to my last organization, Fortune 500, and I'm coming in. There are a lot of people that grew up in this company, and I'm coming in with fresh ideas and new ways of doing things. And I can't tell you how many times I was hitting a wall because there were people with design bias of, we've already tried that, or it won't work here, and here's why. And so you've got to be able to remove some of that friction or those walls in front of you, or work with people that are a little more open-minded and not held by those constraints that a lot of us might, after 25 years in talent acquisition, I've been there, done it, and seen a lot of things. And I've got to be open-minded on what's possible when I'm looking at identifying problems before you even get into the solutioning aspect of it.
100%. 100%. And my aha unlock that I had last night was I do have 8 to 12 years experience doing this type of work, but it wasn't from software. It comes from, drumroll please, talent acquisition. Because what we do in talent acquisition is we have to work with user groups, hiring managers, teams to define the right thing that in our world is a headcount, right? So we work with a manager, a hiring manager to define that right thing or who we're looking for. We get very crystal clear on that persona of what success might look like. And then we go out and we find that person in the wild. And our build is getting that human, right? Like finding that human and putting them in seat and having them kind of exist with the organization. So that it was just like this crazy aha moment for me, Jules, because I was like, wait a minute, that's probably the piece that made me better at HR technologies because I understood the one size fits one problem, right? Because when you're working with a hiring manager, right is subjective. It's not about being right. You have to get it right. And in order to get it right, you have to understand what right is. Same issue that you have with FTEs is if you think you are right going into it, or you have a design bias for how you think this problem should be solved, you are preventing yourself from being able to solve it in the most efficient, effective ways. One of the things that I found from a lot of people, because I've started building agents, 6 months ago, like not a very long time ago, but time and time again, I will have CTOs or people who are pretty established in the software world be like, I never would have thought to solve it that way. And that never would have thought to solve it that way was because I didn't have a design bias for how we had solved the problems before. So when you understand essentially the exact problem statement in current state, and then you understand where you want to go, you can ask AI to reverse engineer to help you to get there. And that reverse engineer port looks very, very, very different for somebody who hasn't done software before. And so I was talking to Julie, I was like, if we want to get FTE right, we should actually just hire the really dang good recruiters, because everybody's worked with a really dang good recruiter before. The person who thinks outside the box, is able to find the skills out there, is able to build tactical empathy, is able to build relationships across multiple different departments and levels and whatever. They understand what right is and they go and get that right. Those are the exact skills that are needed to get this FDE role right. So I again, there we go.
Well, instead of losing people, or as an organization, instead of hiring these engineers to do this type of work, being able to upskill and reskill some of your team, I think about even HRIS organizations. Within large enterprise customers, the HRIS team typically, and in many instances, is making changes into your systems. They're not the ones that are building some of these agentic experiences or understanding all of the complexities. You may be at a company that has an amazing HRIS org, and I hope you do. But I've found in many experiences, TA is not their only customer. They're working with comp and learning and benefits and all the different HR SMEs. And so they don't have the bandwidth to go deep. But I've had on my TA ops teams or recruiters or sourcers, Shally, if you know Shally Steckerl, you'll know he is brilliant. And
Rock
he is,
star.
is someone that is an FDE before maybe it
It
became
was a hot
known.
thing to be.
Shally understands the problems and builds systems and figures out ways to work around the bottlenecks within
Understand
systems
the
and
bottlenecks,
processes.
build your systems for success within it, right? Like, but also, I mean, the really, really, really good recruiters that are out there or sourcers like Shally, they're able to think outside the box in terms of transferable skills.
Understand the problem and be able to reverse engineer the solution. I always joke with Shally that he was probably the kid that took the television apart to see how it works and then put it back together. Maybe there's a screw or two loose on the side, but just he's someone that I've always, I think, exemplified this type of role ahead of it coming into existence.
It's people like a Shally, right, who are able to think differently about how we solve the problem, right? We've done this before in the talent acquisition space. I was catching up with Julia earlier today in advance of this recording, and I was like, yeah, remember that group that worked for Citigroup, I think it was, but they would specifically hire the like sous chef at the high-end restaurants that had to translate things from the order taker to the various different teams. And they found that that skill set was sharp, and it was the exact thing that needed to sit between the software engineers and the business. And so they could take, again, that 85% of the way sharpened skill and then teach them that 15% that was specific to the coding language or whatever. They were able to redeploy those skills to solve a different problem. This is another one of those examples. We've seen this story play out before, but now the cool new hot thing is the FDE role. And again, my hypothesis is like, if you're looking to do this on the people ops or HR side, like, and you have a really, really killer recruiter who's on your team who understands how to find the right role, how to define it, how to find that person in the wild, that full cycle recruiter or a sourcer like a Shally, those are people that are indicating that they have the right skill set to be able to do this work, right? Because this work is different than building one size fits all. This is building one size fits one. And it is in recruiting that we learn that right is subjective, right? What's right for one hiring manager is not going to be the same as what's right for another hiring manager. Like Julia said before, we can't bring our design biases into that conversation because it ultimately is about getting it right, not about being right. right? So if we lead with like, I'm so good, I know how to do this, I've done software engineering for years and years and years, you're not going to get it right because you're not actually seeking to understand the right problem. And again, you're using your design bias to be able to solve those. And that's not what's needed here. And so when we deconstruct work and we specifically deconstruct roles from like a skill standpoint, that's when we peek behind the curtain to look at what all the Lego blocks are there. Then once we isolate the most important Lego blocks, we can go and find those Lego blocks that exist otherwise in our organization. And depending on where the business is at, we can pop those people in to some of these roles or give them upskilling and opportunities for reskilling, right? Exciting time.
It really is. And one of the most critical skills is that business to technical translation that happens in people in this type of role. And so as leaders, we've got to understand, how do we teach some of these skills to people where they can identify the friction, some of the real friction, right? A hiring manager saying hiring's just too slow. Okay, what do you do with that, right? You've got to peel back the layers of the onion to understand, what are the complexities in your process. Is this just a one-off thing? So I know consistently, anyone in the TA space, if you're a recruiter, you've heard people complain about the background check and background checks taking too long. Well, in reality, most of the background check providers do provide like 98% of the cases go in that short time frame that they need to process, and it's just that like outlier that took 3 weeks because someone's moved 20 times, and
Or
the
they're in Florida and you have to actually pull open a manual file in some of these counties to check to see if there is any sort of issues that you've got, right? Like these weird, again, not the norm. It's the exception. It's not the rule.
Yeah.
Now I
Or
interrupted
it's
you.
maybe your hiring process is slow because hiring manager feedback is taking too long, and you can create some sort of process to shorten that cycle. So there's lots of opportunities, I think, within talent acquisition and HR for reskilling and upskilling teams to work through some of these processes. And then it's training people on some of the right ways to use AI. And I think, Jenny, we've spent a lot of time in some of our past sessions. And I know we're going to continue to help teach and educate people on how to do things like proper grounding and handoff documents and how to use AI for good, as we like to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think we're probably at a good stopping point for this one. Thank you so much for those of you who are tuning in. We're excited to have you here and drop us a message. And if there's anything that's top of mind for you as it relates to this or another topic, please shoot it our way. We would love to cover it on the show. Until next time, I'm Jenny Cotie Kangas, or JCK for short, and I'm here with my co host.
Julia Levy, and this is the Missing Manual. Bye.